Well, ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba. There we go. That's the intro music. Everybody, welcome to episode 30 of Everything Teams Phone Live Wednesday edition. What is going on here? It's like I'm taking crazy pills. I'm doing this on a Wednesday instead of a Friday. Well, we're back at it, but today, Brandon, we've got something special going on. Brandon, what do we got going on today, Brandon?
Oh, we're excited to have Tony join us from San Juan County. I think we're going to be talking about quite a bit of things, but really, it'll be fun to explore kind of your journey, Tony, to where you were and how you ended up to Teams Phone and kind of maybe there's gotchas you learned along the way, maybe there's tips maybe there's secrets just kind of we're going to open up that can and have a discussion.
Dive right in. I love it. This is great having a customer, a real live customer on. We can talk about all the things that go on in a customer's mind.
You can give our viewers a true review.
That's right. With limits, with Microsoft Teams limits. Those are the bumpers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, listen, Tony, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. We do have a little ritual that we just started a couple of weeks ago. Brandon, we're going to go through it again. Let's announce this. So if you're listening out there, and I know you are because I see people on, if you're listening out there, the idea here is we give away a headset every show. Here's the headset we're giving away. It's a pretty cool BH71 Pro from Yealink. That's the box. This is what it looks like. This one's been in my ear, so it's not this one that you're getting. You're getting one shipped for the manufacturer. So it's exciting. This is pretty cool. Lasts a long time. Brandon, what's the hour? Do you know what the duration of these guys are? The talk time?
I honestly don't, because I don't have one. I know I've got the over the ear
20
model.
Hours.
Is it 20 hours? Yeah.
20 hours of talk time. Isn't that crazy? That's pretty cool. 4 mic array. I used it the other day to listen to music because, I use my headphones for a couple of different reasons, right? To listen to music and then to be on calls. And this was pretty cool because it's nice and loud. And you see the gray hair here, so I like the loud stuff. But it's nice and loud, smooth little case. You can slide this into your pocket, and then check this out. This is pretty cool. You can actually have it set right there and charge. The case is a charging case. So someone is going to get that. Brandon, what do they need to do to win the headset?
Yeah, they just need to ask a question that A, either stumps us, or B, we find interesting, that kind of cultivates conversation.
And 2 + 2 doesn't count for me. Brandon's my lifeline. It's 4, so I'm not stumped. That doesn't count.
And we've got Tony on who has obviously real world experience consuming the phone system and obviously configuring it. So if I get stumped, I'm just going to look at Tony and say, hey, I hope you can bail me out.
There we go.
And I'll call Rohit.
There we go. All right. Well, Tony, let's kick this off. Tell us a little bit about you, Tony, and then you can tell us about San Juan. But let's start with you first. What do you do? Where do you come from? What's your background? That sort of thing, if you don't mind.
My name is Tony Harrell, the Director of IT for San Juan County, Washington. I've been here just over about 8 years and 3 months in this position. I worked in Arlington, Washington before that for about 10 years, and prior to that in Skagit County. So started at the help desk at Skagit while I was going to school still, and network administrator at Arlington, and then came here as the IT manager, and then we changed all the manager directors. So yeah, where I wanted to live since I was a little kid, coming boating here every year with my family, and I've always wanted. Then my boss and good friend at Arlington goes, hey, IT manager job's open at San Juan County. And then he balked at it. And then I went, yeah. And a month later, I was here. So
there you go. That's awesome. So you just kind of climbed that ladder. I mean, you started off and so always in government, then it sounds like. So from school on. Yeah.
Yep. When
interesting.
I got to a certain point in state retirement, I decided I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah, that's interesting. You'll have some good perspective, I think, on operations for a county or operations for sort of government agencies, right? I mean, you guys are unique in that small county, but you're still unique in that you serve the public, right?
Yes.
And that is, that's pretty interesting because there's probably components that you think about how Microsoft Teams or how your solutions could resolve or solve problems for some masses, right? And you've got to create sort of, I would say, simple solutions that the consumers can easily consume, right? I mean, so you'll have some really good perspective as we sort of dive in. So this is pretty cool. All right, well, Brandon, what do we have? What do we have teed up for Tony? By the way, if anybody asks any good questions, please start putting them in the chat. We'll make sure and highlight them and see if you qualify for the headset. There we go. Let's go.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, we've got listeners who they end up emailing us after shows and they want to know. We had some great questions last week wanting to know things about tenant configurations and whatnot. And I'm not going to necessarily go into those weeds, but I think our listeners are coming from a myriad of backgrounds, right? They could be on-prem Cisco, Mitel, ShoreTel. They could be on, a Ring Central, 8x8, whoever. So I think where it would be appropriate to start in my mind, Tony, would be, what's been your experience in your journey that has ended you on the Teams phone system, whether that was, specifically with San Juan County or maybe just in general over your tenure of experience. How have you seen that progression and why, in your mind, why Teams Phone?
Well, when I started in IT, phones were not part of IT. It was actually at Skagit, it was part of the facilities department. And it wasn't until Arlington that I got my first punch-down tool and was, punching down 2 wires all the time. And then we went to Skype for Business. I think we did the migration. We went to Skype for Business on-prem, of course. Actually, at Link, it was still Link.
Oh yeah.
When it first started, then obviously got the Skype, and then when I got here, it was a it was a kind of a basic VoIP system. I think it was a Barracuda, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And we weren't, super happy about it. And when I got here, not having unified communications was kind of a shock to the system. We didn't have the tool just to go, hey, I just want to send a quick message or whatever, or easy conferencing. So we went to Skype. And then we skipped going to Skype for Business Online, which in hindsight was a giant mistake. Because then eventually Skype for Business Online went away. It just became Teams. And we migrated from Skype for Business to Teams and kind of a hybrid. We were still had our Skype for Business on-prem phone. We're using Teams at the beginning of the pandemic for conferencing and all that. And then was it last year, I think? Last year we moved to, and we had G12 at the time for our SIP provider with Skype, and then we moved. And I think there was some road bumps in our migration because of that we hadn't gone to Skype for Business Online.
That's right. I think you guys end up dealing with something like island mode for your users, and you had to figure out how to switch to Teams mode and not be so disruptive to the business.
Yes, and they really and Microsoft at that time really wasn't supporting it anymore. We actually had to have I guess it was with our previous, the vendor that helped us with Skype, helped us with dealing directly with Microsoft behind the scenes to actually get them to turn islands mode on. We couldn't actually do it. It had to be done by Microsoft. And that worked okay. But people were gradually using their Teams for everything, just not for phone calls. So we have 2 unified communication applications on the desktop. It got cumbersome. We couldn't federate with anybody else in Teams outside of our organization because you can't do that in islands mode. So, but being that we were in the Microsoft world, it was just an easy choice to go from Skype to Teams, and it was fairly painless. I think Operator Connect was the best part of it because it made it so much easier. We had direct routing for some of our Teams conference rooms through G12, and that was fine. But the Operator Connect was so much better, so much easier. There's such a tight integration to be able to go from in the Operator Connect portal, pushing numbers to users, and it was great. So,
It's nice how being part of the Microsoft ecosystem, the Operator Connect ecosystem, right? They do lay out a set of APIs that you can go build to and work with to set up automation for consumers or for businesses. And when you live in the Microsoft ecosystem and you don't have automation, you have it around. Well, you have it around everything else, but when you don't have automation with a component, it really kind of you're like, why is this so difficult? And so being part of that OCA and finally delivering on the delivering on the APIs for us to go and kind of build to and create some automation. I think that's made it really exciting for organizations because you just hand over a tool and you can self-serve as much as you want. You know how we operate. We like to talk to our customers. We like to support the customers. And so we love it when you call us, but ultimately if you want to be able to self-serve, I mean, you're the kind of person that wants to, I want to go deliver on my service. I know what to do. You've done it for years and years, right? You've made the migration from Link to Skype for Business and then, off to Teams. And so giving you a tool that you can go administer on your own is pretty cool.
Yes.
Well, that's
so I want to go back to a comment totally off topic at Teams Phone for a second. You'd mentioned you kind of came into San Juan and, there was no real collaboration tool. So this is an interesting conversation piece I think we have on our show around the adoption of collaboration, as the kind of the new business process methodology within businesses. So I'm curious from your perspective when you came in and obviously the history of who was proposing what from your organization. Did you find the adoption of collaboration difficult for users or really, really easy for users? Because I think that's a debatable thing in our audience circle.
It's still a debatable thing.
I agree.
I think any organization you're in, other than maybe, new technology companies using new modern tools for whatever purpose, then no matter what, if it's in tech or anywhere, it's hard sometimes for people to change the way they're doing. We have users that, want only their phone to ring. They don't want a client on their computer whatsoever. I mean, and with Teams and Skype, you pretty much have to have the client on your computer, but you don't have to use it. And they use the phone. They push buttons on a phone to make a phone call. So there is a lot of that. I think with certain people, it's been great. We've had some new people over the last year, and it's all their whole life is in Teams / SharePoint / OneDrive. Yeah. They don't know. They go, if someone tells them, "Hey, I have this over here on this drive," and they'll go, "What? Where? What are you talking about?" They don't use it. They technically really don't even need a local account on this network. They could just completely live in Office 365. Everything they do is in SharePoint or Teams or on the web in some other application.
So let's break this down a little bit. So in your organization, I mean, I'll touch on a thing that Brandon brought up a little earlier, but in your organization, would you say that the majority, or is there a number that people prefer, let's just say, to live on a phone system? It's a phone system. I want a phone system. It blows me away because I had this conversation with someone yesterday where they just said, we just want a phone system to be a phone system. And you guys, we all know Microsoft Teams were like, if you want a phone system, here's a phone system. There's a whole bunch of extra stuff, but if you just want a phone system, it'll do the phone system thing as well. So if you had to take apart your organization and look at it and just go from a percentage perspective, what group or what percentage would you say uses or prefers a physical phone and that sort of legacy sort of experience versus something new? Just super curious.
I think, well, just based on devices, and we're just strictly talking about the phone system, not any of the other collaboration tools, but strictly the phone system. We have, I think, about half and half as far as who uses a headset versus or other device like on camera and soundbar or whatever versus a desk phone. We did it, took a survey of everyone when we were moving to Teams because we needed to buy new devices, and kind of a bunch of people didn't do answer the survey, so we kind of made a semi-educated guess on the number of phones to purchase. and I actually have a lot more boxes of unopened phones right now than we were planning on.
Yeah,
and we didn't get enough headsets. So I was actually kind of surprised. It had grown from when we started Skype.
It's interesting. So Rick,
I think
you
have
and
a desk phone on any computer or on any desk in the county. They're just a headache.
We love that.
Yeah.
And Rick, you and I, we talk. We think it's what, about 30%. If we were to take a swag, right? 30% of users is kind of what we see still wanting that comfort of a handset, if you will.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we're typically talking about industry, though, right? Like, and so if you go industry, if you go,
it depends on what industry you're in. Government is technically usually an older population.
100%, and that's exactly why you're probably sitting at 50-50 still, right? With some ideas that it's probably going to decline as as the generation turns over or whatever it may be, but it'll decline and decline and decline, and ultimately it'll be collaboration tools on your desktop. Are you shocked when you first arrived that there was, I mean, you said this earlier, but how shocked are you that at organizations, not necessarily your own organization, but at organizations that don't have a collaboration tool that's all encompassing?
I guess it just, nothing shocks me. It all depends on the organization. There's some organizations that are, super small. They're there's not a real need. Their collaboration literally is, looking across the aisleway at another desk.
Yeah, and we've lost the connection to Tony now. So no, I'm just kidding.
And he's gone.
Yeah.
But I think when I got here, to circle back to that, when I first got here, a couple things. One, they hadn't had a true. They had an IT department, but they didn't have a real IT manager or director. They had people filling in that position that had maybe programming background or whatever, and so they never had the experience of working in an organization, in an IT organization. The other thing was that when I got here, there was, and this is now for the whole county, not just government, but San Juan County out on these islands, there was maybe a handful, maybe a half dozen cell towers from various carriers. I had Verizon when I got here. It worked in town once I left town, which the town's super small. But once you left town, there was no cell coverage here, literally none, except for in a few places, like up by Roach Harbor, by East Sound, some of the resort areas a little bit. But in the first few years, T-Mobile put in 38 towers.
Wow.
And now we have great coverage and 5G pretty much everywhere in the county. So people were coming from dealing with dial tone, coming from CenturyLink, and that's how you communicated. So the first few years, we switched all that to Skype for here, and then got G12, had a SIP connection, and that was a big change right there. And I think as people started getting used to using these communication tools, it has rapidly grown within the organization. People still don't like their desk phones, but they are into the collaboration tools.
Yeah.
Not 100%, but I mean, some people don't need it.
Yeah. I do get that. If you're an organization that's tight, you're in a single location, and you need just, normal phone communication, and you're not, I guess working with other, people that meet. If you're a tire shop, maybe you don't need that, right? Maybe you don't need that sort of thing, or some retail like that. Sometimes maybe you don't need that. It's interesting. When we G12, when we were growing as an organization, up till 2016 or so, 2017, we were heavily, we all used conference phones. I even had like a star phone on my desk, and it was conference bridges. It was conference bridges and conference calls all day long, right? You were on conference calls all day long. And now I think about it and go, wow, how do we work through a remote organization? Because we've got 55 people or so spread all across the country, right? And internationally as well. How do we operate that way? And it was really difficult, I think, to operate that way, or you didn't feel as good as you feel now, like finally, I know, Brandon finally earns a salary that he gets paid. I mean, he's at his desk all the time, and I know he's at his desk because I ring him up and he's right there. I'm just kidding. But seriously though, you work in where you just didn't see people, and now you get to have this camaraderie, you get to have this engagement, you get to have this, it's not as good as in person, but darn, it's pretty darn good. Like when you do get to collaborate. So that is, it's amazing to me.
There was nothing good about 2020 and 2021. Let me start there. The silver lining is that it enabled us to spend money on connecting our islands better together. Because we have 3 islands that have actual county departments or staff. And for meetings, they were coming over, getting on a ferry or taking one of the county boats and getting over here, wasting half their day to come to an hour-long meeting. Residents, citizens, they had some rudimentary kind of a streaming service, which we have since turned into a much better streaming service using Teams and our streaming partner. And now people can, if they want to make public comment to council, they can do it from their home. They can do it from some office over on one of the other islands. Staff can can connect in through Teams to county council, give presentations. I was at department head meeting today, and there was, I don't know, half dozen of the 18 of us that were elsewhere. So that has been a big thing for us with the islands, because it's not as simple as just driving across town to your office, to the home office.
Right.
So
right. You guys have little airports, right? I mean, you guys have little, like, is Orcas Island part of the islands? Is that part of it?
Yep.
Like Orcas has got their own.
All the main islands have, pretty much all of them have some sort of airstrip. Even some of the small islands have airstrips. But we actually have airports, and there's Friday Harbor Airport is the one that Kenmore Air flies to. Well, they fly to the water too, but
right.
We have airports all around, and I have our facilities director. He actually lives on Orcas and flies to work every day.
Yeah,
on his own plane.
Yeah,
and people take boats to work.
That's crazy. It's crazy to think of, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that I think whether it was Teams or anything. But the collaboration tools have made that so much easier to have people working on other islands and having somewhat of it's not necessarily hybrid. They're working in their office. Some work from home. We still have hybrid work, but it's,
Have you guys, being a county and you serving the public, have you guys explored any of the Microsoft ecosystem tools that allow you to automate tasks or responses or anything like that? And I'm speaking specifically to like Azure Communication Services and or Power Automate. Are you involved in those? Are you familiar with those at all?
I'm familiar with them, but we're not using any of those tools. No.
Got it. It's pretty exciting. We as an organization are starting to be more and more familiar with the things that we can build inside Power Automate and Azure Communication Services. And as when you're a solutions provider like we are, our brains just go everywhere. Like, it's like, what can you go build? You can build this, you can build that. But it's important for us to keep focused on what's serving our customer. Like who's our customer and what is it that who are they serving? Mm-hmm. Because, what process do they need to go sort of figure out how to automate? And so we're finding a lot of success in sort of kind of understanding their model more than we used to as an organization. Right. And then figuring out how we can help them with some automation tools. So that's pretty darn exciting. So, yes, we can skip over that, but Azure Communication Services and Power Automate are becoming more and more interesting for us as a service provider. So, all right. Well, talk to us about something that's that maybe I know you hit a couple of road bumps with the islands mode versus Teams mode. When you were migrating, were there other things to consider that were important? Because just so you know, Tony, our listeners here are either Microsoft account managers that are actively selling into or talking to organizations about Microsoft Teams Phone. Mm-hmm. They're CIOs of organizations. And then IT people that help organizations, in their own way, right? So that's typically who listens. Brandon, did I miss anybody, Brandon?
No, I think you covered it. Outside of some various, obviously there's going to be random people listening too. Not to call them random, but not to categorize them either.
So if you're thinking about that audience, I mean, what were some things that should be up for discussion before doing anything like this, before migrating to Microsoft Teams?
No, I can't really think of anything exact.
Well, that means that's
the understanding, I guess, of yeah, I guess it just depends on what systems you're at and where you're at. I mean, I think like I said, I think it would have been easier to migrate to Skype for Business online. We probably would have had some of the same headaches that we did doing that, and moving. Either way, we were moving online from on-premise. We weren't ready at the time when Skype for Business Online came, because our connectivity to the mainland was not where I felt we should be for cloud, going so heavily into the cloud. Since that time now, it's gotten a lot better. We have redundant high-speed connections to the mainland. But I don't know. We're really working with G12. It made it fairly simple. I mean, we had to learn. We were learning on the fly because our department, we don't want to. The last time, the previous vendor we had, they were good, but we were dependent upon them. This time, we spent 2 years on Teams without going to the phone system, just doing Teams, learning as much about Teams as we could, and that was the biggest thing for us, because we didn't want to rely on any vendors for anything. I mean, with you guys, you're a SIP provider and you're a connection through Operator Connect. We do everything else. You take some of our DIDs, switch them over for us, and from what I understand the other day, that's going to go away. That we're going to be able to do that. I'm hoping. We don't mind. You guys are quick about it, but it is easier for my guys to just go into the portal, and if they could just take that number, go drop it over there, but that made, working with I did this the other day. I forgot his name.
Neil.
Neil. It was great. We had to, and being that we were on islands, we did island by island or department by department, because we couldn't be in 3 different islands at once. So we didn't go the whole, and he was great, very helpful. He did actually some of the heavy lifting. I mean, we could have done it, but he took spreadsheets from us and loaded it up. And when I said hit go, he hit go.
Nice.
There was a lot of the stuff that we had to do on premise from our old Skype server in PowerShell, that Microsoft's documentation wasn't real clear. We'd get a lot of errors. I think Neil helped us with a couple of them. He goes, just do this, and a lot of it had to do with the address book, or contact list. Sorry, contacts. Mm-hmm. But really, other than those few things, it was a fairly painless process. But we knew Teams pretty well. Yeah, we had before we even got to the point of moving numbers, we had every call queue, every auto attendant, everything set up. Everything was just ready to go and ready to be targeted with phone numbers. So we did all those, and it was actually, but we knew that going in. So we figured all this out in advance. That's a big thing. Just figure everything out in advance. You can of course, pay somebody a bunch of money and have them do it, but
right. That is the nice thing about Teams.
We're in the middle of nowhere. We try to do stuff on our own.
Yeah, well, you can just go do it, right? That's the nice thing about Teams is if you're thinking about your traditional phone system, right? Even if it's a cloud phone system, you're going to a vendor and you're buying it and you're paying for it at that point, right? You're paying for it. You got to go stick it in and roll with the punches, whatever they may be, right?
Right.
In the Teams scenario, you can go and sit for 2 years and just test and build and not impact anything. And you could even go get some test numbers if you want to get some test numbers, and not have to worry about any sort of glitches. And you can run that as long as you want to run that. It makes for a really Yeah, a really easy transition. What's the most complicated thing you guys do in Teams? I mean, if you're familiar with Teams and you build queues and call it in auto attendance and sort of, you've got all the things working. What's sort of the most complex feature, or what's one of your favorite features in Microsoft Teams?
I think the favorite feature about it is that it has enabled, no matter if you have, it's the mobility is the biggest thing. We were talking about devices. We have some that, like our public works director, just a couple offices down, he doesn't have a desk phone, doesn't have a headset, doesn't have anything. He has his cell phone.
Mobile phone.
He has a Teams client on it. Or he forwards his number, either way. But typically he used to forward Skype to that, even though he could have run the Skype client. And now I think he runs a Teams client, because he's out of the office all the time. So,
and I think,
so even though Brandon may answer your call, he could be on his mobile phone at the beach.
This is how he knows I don't have my camera on when I'm mobile.
Yeah, he does. I'm like, what's he doing now?
Yeah,
but
I think that is the that, and then the team itself aspect of each, departments, teams, or different groups, and the teams they have, and the collaboration, and the meetings like this, Teams meetings, together when you're all over the place. I mean, those are some of the key things. I mean, from the back end, from the IT side, it's just, there's troubleshooting different issues with different things, but there is with any system. I mean, it's nothing that's too, finding the right devices, finding the right, setting the rooms up properly.
Yeah. So let me ask you, this is a massive generalization, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying that the mobility aspect of the mobile device, the ability to be anywhere, there's broadband on a PC for a county, I'll just say for a county your size, or particular, maybe some government agencies, and for the things that you guys do to operate, a government agency, that mobility is just super key. That mobility is worth its weight in gold than having a Cisco phone system sitting on everybody's desk and stuck at the office. Yeah.
I mean, I can't speak for any other, I'm sure there's other systems that can do the same thing, but this is what we use.
Yeah.
And since 2020, we're not going away from, I mean, there's some departments that they have to have people in the office that actually serve people at a counter. But for a lot of us, hybrid still, that's just the way of life. And I work remotely for a month during the winter every year, go where the sun is. I mean, I'm attending meetings, I'm doing everything that I do normally, and it's, my laptop or whatever. So
where do you go to find the sun? What's happening there?
Well, this last year we were in Tucson for 2 weeks and Palm Springs for 2 weeks. So, and this next winter we're going to Lake Havasu.
There you go.
I mean, I live where the sun always shines, warm or cold. The sun is usually always shining where I'm at. So,
is it really Denver? Is it really that warm, or is that sunny in Denver? I wouldn't think Denver's a sunny sort of known.
It's either sunny or it's snowing.
I got a thermometer behind me, and it says 96 degrees right now, so it's pretty warm out there.
We're like that in the Northwest today, Brandon. I know you're in Denver, but in the Northwest, I think we're probably sitting at 96 or somewhere around there. It's crazy.
So speaking of mobility, Tony, are you as a county, are you keeping an eye on what Microsoft is doing from this Teams mobile front, where you've got your Teams client maybe on your computer, and you just brought up a perfect use case where you have someone who's constantly away, and maybe they're wanting to forward their number to a cell phone. Here at G12, we're starting to work on the mobile convergence aspect for Teams, where now we have, not yet, but we will have the ability to you'll be able to take that call into your Teams phone system, and for given users, we can bring mobile convergence in on an eSIM loaded on a phone to deliver directly over the cellular network in case you're out fishing, in case you're out, somewhere where maybe data's not good, but the the cell service is good enough to receive that call. Is that on your guys' radar, or is it not on your radar? I guess is the question I'm asking.
It might be now.
It's so new, right? I mean, it's the Teams Phone Mobile is what it's called, I think, today.
Yep.
I think it's changed not a couple of times. I think it's changed once, but right now it's called Teams Phone Mobile, and it's being tackled from on two different levels, right? Number one, it's being tackled at a network component level. So if you go to Verizon, you could pick up the Verizon network and go, okay, we can procure sort of Teams Mobile through that sort of organization. And then there's also a handful, maybe a couple of organizations that are working on the eSIM component, right? Like Brandon mentioned. And so that's what's pretty interesting, because as a provider and Operator Connect, we can go, okay, we're gonna take down sort of these eSIM, sort of this eSIM infrastructure, and
it'll
be able to deliver that frontline service on mobile devices.
Yeah. So we're taking the MVNO approach, right? We don't own the wireless network, right? So we've got to obviously lease from the wireless network, but that allows us to take an eSIM branded as us and then sell it on to the customer base.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of great use cases for it. I don't know, in the US it seems like.
What network are you going to use?
Well, give me a couple of weeks and I'll announce it to you. We're working on a couple.
Well,
you can guess.
and it's interesting because what happens in that scenario, though, the ubiquitous sort of deployment becomes it's a bit of work, right? Because you're going to be looking at this going, okay, so if the customer has Apple phone, a 14 or later, eSIM's already enabled on those devices, and it's just an easy activation, right? So you've got a few of those examples where you've got some newer phones, they all come with eSIMs attached to them, right? But if you've got a bit of an older phone, if they've been distributed already in the organization, there's some organizations will switch it and kind of add it for you, and so there'll be a bit of work involved with that. It's not as ubiquitous as you'd like it to be, but I think moving forward, right? I think from 6 months ago on, or a year ago on, it should be pretty darn ubiquitous. How many people would you say are on mobile devices in your organization, or that would be mobile device users in your organization?
Well, I mean, we have about half the organization has mobile phones. I don't know that it would be that number that would actually need that.
Is it? Do you guys provide the mobile phone, or are you just it's a personal phone that you?
We provide them.
Yeah.
As of today, people with their personal devices can still get their email. They can, they could use Teams if they wanted. However, we're not doing any MDM on personal devices at this point. Mm-hmm. However, we're going to, and I would imagine that when that happens, they will stop using their personal phones and ask their department head for a county phone if they need it, or they just won't do it.
Okay.
But I mean, our biggest priority has been security, and we want to be able to manage at least the county side of their personal device. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great solutions out there for a BYOD MDM solution. I've seen a few of them, and I think this eSIM plays really nicely into that type of solution. If you're going to go down that where, hey, user, you can bring your own device, but you got to put could be like a workspace one or something on there to give you that virtual separation. But then,
yeah, I mean,
obviously
we have that using Microsoft Endpoint. So
yeah.
When we have it set up, and we've done testing with it on some of our personal devices within IT. It works fine. But yeah, I just don't think they won't want us doing anything with their.
Oh yeah, I've seen that too, where you got users out there that it really just boils down to a trust thing, right? And it's not to knock on anyone. It's you want to load your software on something I own, and
right.
I don't trust you.
And I don't trust them.
Yeah.
To touch our whatever it is, whether it's SharePoint, Teams, whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But no, but the people that for the most part, if we look through all of our users, most of it are on county-owned devices. fully managed, apps approved by us. So that's our.
That's an interesting question. That's a good question. So just because you mentioned apps, I'm gonna pivot from the mobile device for just a second. Do you guys lock things down and not to announce to the world, but is it so locked down where you discourage third-party apps in Microsoft Teams that are available in the Teams store essentially?
Yes.
Yeah. This is we had this discussion. Was it last time, Brandon? Last week, where we were talking about someone who had a third-party app in Microsoft Teams, and because Microsoft I think announced 1,900 apps in their Teams app store, but most organizations don't allow people to see them. Right? They keep it sort of locked down, and so just out of so just from curiosity perspective, I was like, okay, do you guys lock things down to third-party apps so they're just not visible? Obviously, they'd be visible if you guys are looking at third-party app solutions and go, okay, it's an app in Teams, great. Let me go add this and roll it out to my organization because now I know what it is and it's trusted.
Right. When we expand our department, which we hopefully will be slightly this next year, and we have somebody that can actually manage that, then we could possibly do it. It's more of it's a management thing. We don't want to just go willy-nilly. We don't go willy-nilly into anything. So we look at it, we study it, we figure out what any effects it will have on our network or our infrastructure. And we did that with regular applications. Right now, when a department comes in and requests, hey, we want to use this new piece of software, they request it, and if we are okay with it and the licensing and all that, then we will, and there's a clear use case, then we will download it, we will package it up and push it out to them. So
there you go.
But we just don't have, it's a manpower thing.
All right. And then if you just kind of devices, what devices did you guys end up going with? From a model perspective, is it like a Poly, Yealink, audio codes? What did you guys end up using for devices?
We use Yealinks for the desk phones. Headsets are all, well, they were Plantronics, but now they're all Polys. Our conference rooms, our council hearing room and our two courts are Crestron systems running Teams. And then we did have a Polycom in the courts, and we got rid of it after a year and a half of use because it was horrible. And then we have Polycom devices in most of all of our conference rooms. We might be starting to switch away from those. They're kind of, we've got some issues.
Yeah. So how are you like is it the Yealink? Is it MP54s, 56s, 58s?
54s. We have a couple 56s. They're fine.
54s.
How
do you like those? They're all right?
They're okay.
Do you guys have any use case for the SIP gateways? Do you have any like legacy devices that you've had to attach up to Teams phone where you pair it to the SIP gateway?
No. We could have.
So you got
we decided to switch all of our phones.
Yeah, you got a really clean Teams phone deployment then. Yeah.
No, we don't have. Nice. Yeah, we could have kept our. What did we have? We had audio codes HD 400, the 440s. Yeah, 440s.
Oh yeah.
And we were going to have to do that, but then we didn't want to.
Yeah.
We wanted a team client on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So. I mean, the other thing, but however, the better together is not very better, and it's not very together. And I don't think that's not just a Yealink thing. That's just a Teams thing. It's not as good as the better together between Skype and other Skype phones, or Skype compatible and approved phones. Like the audio codes, I guess Poly had it too, and it was better.
Got it.
This I don't really see the point in having it. I don't think anyone uses it. They either just it seems clunky.
Yeah.
But the phones themselves, they seem fine. I mean, once you configure, you figure. Again, it's the instructions, and mainly from Yealink this time, and some from Microsoft too. It's the instructions, the how to do different things is not. It's basically we did a lot of trial and error. We got some Yealink phones really early on, well before we went live, and we set them up. We used them, in our offices. And yeah, still today, me and one of the guys are still working on an issue with some new phones and a lot of it comes with our, I guess they're called team shared devices, common area phones, and the functionality. And there was the update. I don't know. It was the update on the Yealink phones this week or last week, and it changed how the phones work. The voicemail button disappeared. That people with those kind of shared phones had no way to access their voicemail. There was no button. No, I mean, it was, yeah.
Yeah, there was
that is one thing. That is one thing about Teams that I do not like. The updates. It has broke our Crestrons a few times, and we want to stay secure. We want to keep security updates coming, but we aren't big enough to have enough people. This is again the staffing thing, to have a lab set up to test every single thing that comes down. So when an update comes for those Crestron devices or for these devices, these phones that we just had the problem with, and you come in, the clerks come in at 30 minutes or an hour before the next hearings or trial starts. Oh, nothing's on the Crestron stream. It's not there.
Gosh.
So there's an emergency call to IT, and for those, we usually get on the phone with our vendor that install all these systems, and we're working on it, and we probably are going to have to stop taking Teams updates because it's too much of a problem. Yeah, and they change things. Things get changed, and it's sometimes drastic changes.
Oh, the velocity is coming.
And just stop.
Yeah, the velocity is coming, right? Of changes, they're really ramping up the volume of changes, and it's there's so much development work going on in the Teams ecosystem, and a lot to do with the devices, right, or with the rooms. There is are they Android devices that you guys have? I don't know if Crestron's Android or
yeah.
Well,
the Crestrons aren't. They're Windows, but our other conference room, we have Studio X50s and X30s.
So there was a change coming, and I think I can't remember what change it was, either coming or maybe I think that's the update that you probably experienced.
I think you're thinking of the Android end of life for, was it version 9? But they've pushed that out.
Oh.
Yeah,
that's right, because they all run version 9 Android.
Yeah, they were going to end of life in August, and they pushed it out to October, I believe. So you want to put that on your radar for firmware updates.
Yeah. This is for device administration.
Are they going to push out an Android update to those devices?
They would need to. Yeah, and that's obviously
stop working.
Yeah, well, if you don't get the firmware update, if they end of life it would stop working.
Right. But I mean, they are going to make that available. It's not going to be.
Yeah, but it's largely going to probably depend on the vendor working with Microsoft, which sounds like
Polycom. So I hope Polycom is working.
Yeah, and I'm sure you could reach out to the vendor and ask them. They probably already have the Android updates ready. They just haven't pushed them, widely for GA. Just again, I think Microsoft pushed that to October. So just a big FYI.
I'm on vacation.
I'm gone. I'm outside.
That's easy. I'm on vacation. That's funny.
So I think that is one. I think that is a problematic thing with Teams. I actually am on the early adopter. There's a couple of us in IT for the Teams client updates because we want to see the new features before they get, released to the general population of our staff. And for the last few weeks, it goes, "Oh, you want to go to the new version?" And you say, "Sure, why not?" Hit yes. It goes, "Oh, it's not ready." Do you want to switch back? Well, yeah. Yeah. Today, it actually, without me even pushing anything during a call, dropped my call, said, "Oh, do you want to switch?" No. Well, I said yes to see if it was actually going to work, and it didn't, of course. And then, you want to switch back? Well, yeah. So, I kind of feel like we're in the old Windows updates back in the day, and
they roll something out. Yeah. What do they call it? A Microsoft moment? Is that what it's called? So Microsoft moment there. That's interesting. There is, I mean, you're not wrong. There's a lot of changes coming down, and it is probably a full-time job to keep up with the changes that are rolling out and understand how they impact you. So that's good sort of real world sort of discussion points, because it is something that organizations are going to experience when they move to Microsoft Teams. They're going to experience those things, and you'll want to just you'll want to be prepared for that sort of thing.
Being in the government cloud, they do come a little slower to us, which isn't bad. Isn't a bad thing. I mean, as someone in tech, I like bleeding edge stuff, but for my staff, I don't. For our customers, I don't like it.
Right.
Because we need to be ready for it.
And you guys don't have any direct routing still? Do you guys still have any direct routing going on, or is that all?
Yeah,
done?
we're gonna switch it over. We had our update meeting with your staff last week, and it's just those conference rooms. We're gonna switch over to Operator Connect.
Got it.
When you say you're talking conference phones, not conference bridges, as in the actual conference bridge where you're assigning
just
the number to
our Studio X30s and X50s.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Yeah, because I was going to say, from a conference bridge perspective, I think you still have to use, if you want to carry a third-party number, you still have to use direct routing in the government cloud space.
Is that for GCC High? I don't think for GCC. I think for GCC High you do.
I thought it was for both, but I guess I would have to go confirm that.
Our conference bridge it's the only number we have that's actually a Microsoft number.
Yeah, and so if you wanted that to say be a G12, and now I need to go confirm this, but I thought when GovCloud, you can't move that. You couldn't have that on G12 Operator Connect. You'd have to have direct routing from G12 for that if you wanted G12 to host that number for you.
Nah, it doesn't matter. They have plenty of numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most people connect anyway by a team, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, have you guys seen your volume of I guess I don't know, maybe you don't track your calls, but like volume of calls go down where it's all meetings these days? What would you say your sort of volume of meetings versus volume of actual calls? And again, you support the end users, so I'm curious to see what that looks like.
Well, sure. I mean, internal, yeah, of course.
All gone. Internal's all gone. It's all meetings.
Well, yeah, because there's absolutely no reason to make a phone call.
Yeah.
And even if you tried, it's going to stay internal because that's how Teams is set up. Unless you do a toll bypass.
Right. So yeah, I mean, but calling to and from the outside is no different. I mean, it's stayed the same.
Do you so when people call you, I assume they if you're running an agency, they call you for whatever facility sort of work, or call you for a program that you guys are running, something like that. What do you envision a day where they don't necessarily call you on the phone, or they engage with you in other ways?
I wish. Yeah.
Because today is it all phone calls to you guys today? Emails, phone calls?
They put in work requests.
Okay.
They're supposed to put in work requests. And yes, I mean, if they're not supposed to be calling, if for some reason they can't actually log on, they can't connect to anything, they're stuck, then they can call, get on their cell phone or whatever, and can call the help desk phone number. But typically our rule is, no direct emails to staff in IT, no phone calls unless that specific thing. I mean, if you're working on something with somebody, then of course there's phone calls and emails going back and forth. But yeah, we're trying to eliminate that because all that does is gets in the way.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much, me, for instance, I pretty much am on do not disturb, or I just hit the decline button.
Yeah.
Because I know the people that call. They go, I don't want to put a work request. I just want to talk and get this fixed. I'm like, well, but I'm working on this, or we're doing that. I mean, you're not more important than,
Then whatever the next person.
I mean, if the courts that have an issue a half an hour before a trial starts, if they can put in a work request, everyone else can.
Got it.
Sorry.
So let me thinking about it one more time, I just kind of want to make sure I understand this. So your assumption is, and what you guys try to drive is that somebody starts off when they communicate with the government, with you guys as a county, they're starting off at the website. So they're starting off either they're putting.
Are we talking about the public dealing with the county, or with county staff dealing with IT?
Well, I mean, we could take both those, but let's take because I think you were talking about the county dealing with
County
IT.
staff dealing with IT.
Yeah, let's talk about the public dealing
Okay.
with the county. Is the majority of the communications phone calls? Do they put in some sort of obviously they wouldn't put in a work request. I mean, that's
No.
that would be the internal stuff, but is it mostly phone calls into the county?
Phone calls or email. I mean, they can go on and we oftentimes will redirect them to, well, the department, not we. The IT does not deal with the public whatsoever.
Right.
In fact, if you go down to our new building, at the road, at the sign, IT is not listed. We're not listed on the website. There may not be an IT department for San Juan County. But no, seriously, the website to get information. We have a new communications department that is now putting out lots of information, new, up to date stuff, and I think that's working its way to reduce actual phone calls. But yeah, people are going to call. I mean, it is an older population in San Juan County, the residents, so they're going to use the phone or they're going to come in. And we're small enough that most of the people that come in, they know the people that work here. So, this is the place when you go to the grocery store. I've only been here 8.5 years, and when I go to the grocery store, most everybody you see.
Yep. You know everybody there,
except for in the summer, of course.
Yeah, everybody's visiting there. I'm just curious because what this is Brandon and I's just sort of personal thoughts on where things are going. It's like the starting place for communications we think will soon be the website, whether you're engaging in a phone call, but it's not a phone call from we'll call it a PSTN phone call. It's a click and call, right? It's a click to chat. It's a, click to engage in video in some way, shape or form, right? Versus, this multi-application or step scenario for, if you Google something, what's the number for San Juan for this, San Juan County for this, I Google it, I find it, there's some phone numbers there. I click on the phone number and I'm engaged in a phone call versus here's some direct links now. And I click it and I'm dumped right into, let's say, your call queue for whatever it is I need. Right. So that's interesting to us. We look at that and we kind of think that's sort of the next generation of communications, where it's not this separate sort of PSTN call. It's engagement right from the website.
Sure. I mean, I think that there is probably, we will be addressing and adopting things like that. It all depends on the organization, really. I mean, and who are your customers? I mean, I don't know. It's often a generational thing.
Yep.
It's the younger generations and people in IT.
You've said two things.
So I mean, my dad would never do that.
Right.
Ever. He wants to talk to somebody. In fact, a call tree pisses him off.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it, but you said two things that are really important. I mean, it's the generational sort of turnover, right? Because you look at that and you go, everybody that you're talking to at some point has almost grown up with Skype for Business or Skype, not Skype for Business, Skype, and that trained us all to work on PCs, to communicate, to talk. I mean, and now you've got Teams in the business place. I used to love just phone call. I'm a phone call. I'm still a phone call person. I mean, ask Brandon. I would call Brandon 20 times a day because
his hair is gray.
That's why he does the same thing you do, Tony. He puts on DND, do not disturb. but I do like the phone call. I feel like, yes, it is intrusive and I know it's intrusive, but I need something. And if I want something, I try to get it. Right. So it may be my lack of patience, but I see that as that generational turnover happens. And then again, you said it's who your customers are, right? It's who are you serving as an organization? So those two things are really paramount into, how, the future looks from a communication perspective, because it is changing. The market's changing in terms of, business services, that's all changing. Right. So it's pretty interesting. We're fortunate, I think, to be involved in the team space right now because we love this business and we love sort of kind of how
Right.
it how it helps organizations.
Mhm.
So anyway, Tony, we're at the top of the hour. Brandon, why don't you
Okay.
sign us off? Tony, man, I got to say thank you so much for spending some time with us and being real about what it looks like to roll out Microsoft Teams and what are some of the biggest benefits that you guys see as a county in Washington using Microsoft Teams phone. Brandon, why don't you take us out, buddy?
Yeah, Tony, we appreciate it. I would wish everyone a great weekend, but I guess it's only Wednesday today.
Yeah.
We're used to doing this show on Friday, so maybe it is my weekend. I'll see you guys on Monday. No, but Tony,
Yeah.
we appreciate it. Thank you, and
Yep.
have a great rest of your day.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Have a good day. Bye.
See everyone. Bye-bye.